Well, my connection to the internet just disappeared unexpectedly, and everything was gone. So, I don't know how much of that song y'all just heard, but the whole thing's gone. Like, I mean, in terms of the song, the library of songs that I just set up and all that stuff. So, I'm just gonna maybe play that song again, and while it's playing, hopefully I'll get set up for the rest of it, which won't be hard anyway. So let's just get that happening. And there's usually my internet connection doesn't just disappear like that. But today's my lucky day, I guess. I don't know. I'm curious to hear in the chat room when that song cut off, if it was near the beginning of the song or later. But anyway, here it is again, in honor of Bill Gates getting pied.
I don't know if there's any pie throwers in the audience. Yeah? Planning on throwing any pies? I think there'll be some pie throwing going on in D.C. in the next... I don't know if there will be. I guess they got those places pretty heavily guarded, but I know Dave will be down there, so you never know what'll happen. But the president of the International Monetary Fund got hit with a pie in the face several weeks ago in Bangkok. And up in New Hampshire, they got the genetic engineer Neil First. Dave Pike did that. Or, no, Creamy Jeans is his name, Agent Creamy Jeans. And they got Charles Hurwitz out in California, the mayor of San Francisco, and a whole bunch of other people that really desperately deserved pies in the face. There are probably a lot more. So I wrote a song for the Biotic Baking Brigade, and I hope you all sing along with me. If you don't know the words, you'll pick them up by the second chorus or so. See the man in his limousine, in his tie and well-pressed shirt, hoping that he's not been seen on the lookout for dessert. He knows that he is guilty, and a visit might be paid by the vegan vigilantes of the Biotic Baking Brigade. What's that sailing through the air in the boardroom? See them shiver. You can spend your life hoping for pie in the sky, but the baking brigade delivers. There's the chorus. If you sell your city's soul to the landlord's greedy pack, you, my friend, have earned yourself a tasty pastry snack. You can call yourself a liberal and hope your crimes will fade, but your sellout soul will be exposed by the Biotic Baking Brigade. What's that sailing through the air in the boardroom? See them shiver. You can spend your life hoping for pie in the sky, but the baking brigade delivers. If you cut down the last of the forests, spew poison in the air, don't you be surprised to find that cheesecake in your hair. Yes, if you are a corporate criminal, you've surely made the grade to receive a fresh baked goodie from the Biotic Baking Brigade. Here we go. What's that sailing through the air in the boardroom? See them shiver. You can spend your life hoping for pie in the sky, but the Baking Brigade delivers. Beware all you scoundrels of industry, we know of your disgrace. So smile for the camera with the cream pie in your face. You can hope that we won't find you out as you're hiding in the shade. Someday soon you'll meet your doom, the biotic baking brigade. Here we go. What's that sailing through the air in the boardroom? See them shiver. You can spend your life hoping for pie in the sky, but the baking brigade delivers. One more time. What's that sailing through the air in the boardroom? See them shiver. You can spend your life hoping for pie in the sky, but the baking brigade delivers.
Oops, I forgot to mute the mic during that song, so you probably heard some clicking. Well, nobody said I was a professional. So I got things under control, more or less, now, as long as the Wi-Fi doesn't crap out again. February 6th. This is February in song and history, by the way. February 6th, 1937. The Battle of Jarama began, which was the bloodiest period of the Spanish Civil War, relatively near the beginning of this 3-year war that saw the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people, mostly during the campaign in Jarama, which was the part of the war that was most like World War I. And we've pretty much lost the entire generation of people that fought in Spain, whether Spaniards or International Brigade members. I think there's maybe 2 left alive from the U.S. The last one alive in Canada died a few months ago, and I wrote this song about a brigade member who was a good friend of mine named Bob Steck. They were old when I was young, now they've all but passed away. Now it's just a second-hand memory of the day when from all around the world they sailed off to Spain to fight against the fascists, where so many men were slain. Who will recall the days when they all stood side by side, now that the last Lincoln veteran died? Beside Martin Luther King, or in a veterans parade, you could see the men who made the journey to join the 15th Brigade, when men of many nations, of most every creed and hue, Catholics and Protestants, atheists and Jews, joined together in the trenches to turn back the fascist tide, now that the last Lincoln veteran died. The working class of many nations joined in a desperate bid with what weapons they could find. They fought to save Madrid from Brussels and Berlin, Galway and London town. Who will recall the brigadistas who went to take the fascists down? There beside the Spanish people, even the figs and olives cry, now that the last Lincoln veteran died.
if you deserve only some of Franco's thanks. 'Cause the fuel to move the armor came from the USA, and the men that they gunned down were from New York and Frisco Bay. Uncle Sam claimed he was neutral. Who will remember how he lied now that the last Lincoln veteran died? They say people get conservative the older that they age. They say that being radical is just a useful phase. But the finest communist I've known lived to 95, and he spent his whole life striving for humanity to thrive. To forget these fallen heroes is something I cannot abide, now that the last Lincoln veteran died. Now that the last Lincoln veteran died. There's a valley in Spain called Jarama. It's a place that we all know so well. It was there that we gave of our manhood, where so many of our brave comrades fell.
And on the same date as the Battle of Jarama began in Spain, on February 6, 1980, quite a bit later there, the operatives of the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society sank a Norwegian whaling ship in Lisbon Harbor.
Hobart to Antarctica, so close but so far from Australia, where watchful eyes are always peeled, 'cause you never know when there's a growler below. Watchful eyes peeled for predators and prey, where all you can do is whatever you can to keep the hunt at bay. The time is coming, and it's coming soon, when we'll stand between you and that harpoon. The tide is unforgiving, the seafloor is a grave, for those capsized before us fell beneath the waves. Perhaps we'll join them by accident or not, gale or a storm or a well-aimed shot. But we'll steer around the ice and right into their sights. Everyone must pick their battles. This is our fight. So here beneath the Southern Cross and the crescent moon, we'll stand between you and that harpoon. Between you and the harpoon, there's just a little space, but that's where we can see your face. Look into your eyes and hear you sing. One comes to realize you have to do something. Sometimes all you can do is do your best and hope that someone else will do the rest. So once again we'll spend this afternoon standing between you and that harpoon.
And let's see, where were we? On February 8th, in 1996, a new Telecommunications Act was passed by the U.S. Congress that would ensure the corporate takeover of the airwaves in the U.S. It was one of a series of telecommunications acts. The first devastating one, I believe, was in 1980 or 81, passed under the Reagan administration, which gave people or corporations the right to own up to 40 radio stations, whereas the rule before had been one, which was a good rule. And then it got changed in 96. The ceiling got lifted entirely, so they could any corporation could own as many radio stations as they could afford to buy, and they do. And the results have been devastating for musicians and music lovers in the United States, and by extension around the world, really.
One, two.
Happened again last night, happens every time I play. When the gig is over, someone has to say a question that appears to be on everybody's brains as they're driving down the highway in the commuter lanes. It sure is not just me, it's the 99% of artists who are wondering about the thousands they just spent on a CD that will never make it to the air. Now all of us are grown-ups here, we know life isn't fair, but the answer to the question is one I'd really like to know. Why don't they play you on the radio? Why don't they play you on the radio? Perhaps my songs are too cerebral, they don't make you dance. My melodies are boring, there's no spandex in my pants. Maybe it's because I don't use a drum machine. Maybe I'm too red, or maybe I'm too green. Maybe folks just don't want to hear it, they don't want to analyze anything more complex than the space between your thighs. Maybe I should wear more glitter, go to parties in an egg. Perhaps I need to go electric, or show a bit more leg. But it's something I must wonder at the end of every show. Why don't they play you on the radio? Why don't they play you on the radio? I'm sure there's an exception to each and every rule, but perhaps I'm too political and not a useful tool to keep the music in the background and the commercials in the fore, to keep the shoppers shopping, not protesting the war, to keep the lemmings humming the same 300 songs, the songs they play throughout the year, each night and all day long. Maybe I just don't make the grade to be one of the chosen few. Perhaps there was a sign somewhere and I just missed the cue, or I need to change my name to Bruce or Silvio. Why don't they play you on the radio? Why don't they play you on the radio? Could be I just don't have the talent that's involved. I'm lacking the commitment, I'm insufficiently resolved. Or maybe there just aren't a million people who might buy more records made by some whiny left-wing guy. Or maybe they would, but I'm just out of luck because I don't have a label that can spend $1 million, because Sony and Clear Channel have taken over everything, and you've got to pay the piper if you want to make the piper sing. It's the king who tells the piper where to go. Why don't they play you on the radio? Why don't they play you on the radio? Why don't they play you on the radio? Why don't they play you on the radio?
And then, of course, on February 9th, 2005, TransCanada Corporation proposed building a pipeline to transport Alberta tar sands oil to Texas. And the pipeline has just incidentally in the past few days received some encouraging news for the pipeline, not for the movement against the pipeline, from, I can't remember where it came from, some court or something that said it wasn't going to be environmentally problematic.
As soon as they started drilling for oil, they started building pipelines on the seabed through the forests and across the border lines. As soon as they started laying the pipe, they said, we'll do this safely. There will never be an accident. We can do this carefully. But the sands shift, the ice melts, disasters are routine. Point out their record of destruction, and they'll say their hands are clean. Point out their woeful deeds, and they'll consult their banker and say it's safer to use a pipeline than an oil tanker. So now they want to see how far their madness it can go. A pipeline from the tar sands to the Gulf of Mexico. A pipeline from the tar sands to the Gulf of Mexico. The tar sands line the north, beneath Alberta's ground. As the price of oil rises, the oil men have found now there's profit to be made in a madman's dream by drilling deep beneath earth, blasting it with steam, bulldozing the land, melting what's inside, a record of extinction 1,000 miles wide. But laying waste to the northern plains is evidently not enough. The capitalists need markets where they can sell this toxic stuff. So across the farms and prairies, the oil now must flow. A pipeline from the tar sands to the Gulf of Mexico. A pipeline from the tar sands to the Gulf of Mexico. Governors oppose it, and every native band. Ranchers don't want it passing through their land. Union leaders have denounced it, as have the rank and file. The president delayed it for just a little while. They say you can't stop progress. I hope that isn't true, 'cause if we mine the tar sands, if we let the pipeline through, it will be a pipeline to oblivion, a pipeline to the end, a pipeline to a future with nothing round the bend, a pipeline to a future that I hope we'll never know. A pipeline from the tar sands to the Gulf of Mexico. A pipeline from the tar sands to the Gulf of Mexico. Pipeline from the tar sands to the Gulf of Mexico.
I just love Alejandro Arenas and June Bustamante's instrumentation on that song and on that album, which is from Everything Can Change, which I released on the web last spring. And that song, I believe, is also on the CD If I Had a Hammer, which is my latest CD, which was not some kind of a prediction of Pete Seeger's imminent demise, titling the CD that, but it kind of went like that. On February 10th, 2007, Senator Barack Obama officially announced his candidacy for the U.S. presidency.
I turned on my TV, though it was hard to see these men who would be head of state. What a great country, from sea to shining sea. We watched the Republicans debate. Newt stood with his third wife and said, you bet your life the president is a red. He wants to tax the rich a lot, take your limo and your yacht. He wants to have the bankers' heads. And if he gets in again, he'll beat the White House pig, and then he'll hire Chavez as his VP. Then we'll be right on track to give capitalism the sack, along with the insurance industry. If only it were true, if only it were true, I'd be so happy, wouldn't you? If only it were true, if only it were true, if only it were true. He'll give everyone food stamps and wheelchair ramps. He'll subsidize windmills and maple syrup. He'll cripple industries with eco-friendly policies, and pretty soon we will be just like Europe. He'll shut down oil wells, give out solar cells to every home in Delaware and Illinois. He'll ban logging in the parks. He'll send the works of Karl Marx to the homes of every American girl and boy. He'll abolish pesticides. He'll be giving out free rides and free lunches, too, in his high-speed trains. He'll start lots of public works full of union perks. He'll fill all the cities up with bicycle lanes. If only it were true, if only it were true, I'd be so happy, wouldn't you? If only it were true, if only it were true, if only it were true. Watch out, his critics tell, this shall be our death knell. He'll pull the troops out and end all of our wars. He'll gut military spending, our empire will be ending, and soon we'll be invaded by the Moors. He'll legalize all drugs, give away beer mugs and hookahs to every child and Korans. He'll ban religions from the schools, give 40 acres and a mule to every person who makes less than 50 grand. He'll close Guantanamo, to torture he'll say no. He'll make us all drive electric cars. He'll reinstate the fairness doctrine, take off that damn flag pin, and he'll put Rupert Murdoch behind bars. If only it were true, if only it were true, I'd be so happy, wouldn't you? If only it were true, if only it were true, if only it were true. If only it were true, if only it were true, I'd be so happy, wouldn't you? If only it were true, if only it were true, if only it were true.
That's from my album from 2012, Meanwhile in Afghanistan, which incidentally you can download in one click for free at davidrovics.com by following on the link. There's also an acoustic version of the CD there too. And actually here's the title track, since it is directly relevant to the subject matter of this radio program, which of course is February in History and Song. On February 11th, 2009, 27 people were killed when U.S. warplanes bombed a wedding party in Afghanistan, one of many wedding parties that the U.S. has bombed and killed many, many civilians, usually around half of whom are children.
To articulate their message and together make a toast to the new schemes they're hatching, to the next regime they'll change, to the next nation they'll turn into a bombing range. They hyped it on the radio, newspapers and TV, the anarchists who come and destroy the city. The anarchists who come and the undercover cops, the old Chicago Red Squad and their psyops. It's the cops who bought the petrol, the cops who bought the cans, the cops who brought it home, the cops who made the plans, so they got the terrorists they wanted. Now they're doing fine, they got the terrorists and they got the headlines. I wanna know who, I wanna know who is the terrorist? Wanna know who, wanna know who is the terrorist? Meanwhile in Afghanistan, another family is dead, wiped out in their sleep as they were lying in their bed, wiped out of existence like so many are each day. This is liberation, so they say. This is liberation, and in case you are unsure, the NSA will tell you if your thoughts might be impure. While the generals fly their air force all the way across the ocean, they'll build military bases, drop bombs of all description. But if you drive from Florida to the city of Chicago to pay a little visit to Mayor Rombo, watch out for the cops who bring home the gasoline, and your apartment becomes a crime scene. I wanna know who, wanna know who is the terrorist? Wanna know who, wanna know who is the terrorist? Meanwhile in Afghanistan, a village has been hit, a wedding party transformed into a pit, transformed into a graveyard for children, women, men, transformed into a graveyard for empire again, a place where terrorists are born. With every drone attack, A graveyard for the Midwest boys never coming back. A graveyard for society, a graveyard for ideals, a place to bury all the hearts of anyone who feels. And at the meeting in Chicago, they'll talk of women's rights. They'll talk about the terrorists they've got within their sights. The terrorists abroad, the terrorists so near, the terrorists who grew up in a suburb around here. I want to know who. I want to know who. Who is the terrorist? Want to know who. Want to know who. Who is the terrorist? Meanwhile in Afghanistan, more protesters shot down by NATO troops who had to prove it's them who run this town. By NATO troops who have to show they are in control, while it all comes crashing down in the countries they stole. NATO troops committing war crimes every day, ruling over nations in the old imperial way. The lying generals in Chicago with their satellites and tanks, taking orders from their bosses. The oil men and banks taking orders from their bosses, looking suitably enraged at terror, foreign and domestic, real or staged, whether led on by informants or just pissed off by the war. The terrorists are meeting behind closed doors. I want to know who. I want to know who. Who is the terrorist? Want to know who. Want to know who. Who is the terrorist? Who is the terrorist? Want to know who. Want to know who. Who is the terrorist?
And on the same date, February 11th, 2012, tens of thousands of people throughout Europe and elsewhere rallied against the Anti-Counterfeiting Trade Agreement, ACTA, including very large numbers of people throughout Eastern Europe, which seemed to be a surprise to everybody, including me. But it was quite an impressive turnout in an impressive array of countries. And then, of course, if I were a little better on my recent history, I would remember what happened as a result of that. I believe ACTA was defeated, but I don't remember. But there's all kinds of other bills like that they're constantly passing and proposing, including some horrible stuff recently in the U.S. In terms of net neutrality, which is also related.
People are marching against the chiefs of industry who are trying to protect their intellectual property. Secret negotiations to make a secret deal. They've got Warner Brothers, Sony, and the presidential seal. They say they lobby on behalf of you and me. I say, steal this MP3. 50 years ago, what some call the golden age, Indie FM was the king. The world was a stage. Independent labels made records by the score. Enter 2012, now there are only 4. I've got words for these plutocrats who claim to represent me. Steal this MP3. In between commercials, they play nothing but the hits, and they hope to placate all of us with Lady Gaga's tits. They laid off all their staff before the PC was invented. Now they blame the world that their profits have been dented. The 1% is trying to get their feet. Steal this MP3. Steal it. Who line their pockets while the rest of us get screwed. It could all be a comedy if it weren't so crude. They want to arrest you for sharing knowledge, for violating copyright. To quote my friend Attila, these capitalists are a blight. They don't care about the culture, they just want your money. Steal this MP3. The people don't want censorship by that name or another. They don't want your files trial search by corporate Big Brother. And if it's up to most of us, no one would sign your bill just so Hollywood and Pharma can make another mill. So from the Mekong Delta to the Mediterranean Sea, steal this MP3. 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 From the Mekong Delta to the Mediterranean Sea. Steal this MP3.
And that's also from Meanwhile in Afghanistan, with a wonderful chorus of singers, all from the Portland area. And some kick-ass musicians. Nick Angelo on guitar, Asher Fulero on keyboards. So, anyway, moving on, February 15th, 2003, was, I believe, the biggest day of global protest in one day around the world in history. An estimated 13 million people worldwide participated in protests in hundreds of cities throughout the planet. I can't remember how many countries, I think most of them, against U.S. war plans in Iraq. I was singing at the protest in New York City for 500,000 people and actually that was the last time I saw Pete Seeger personally. We've been in touch since then a little bit, by mail and stuff, but the last time I was sort of hanging out with Pete and Toshi, his wife, who also died a few months ago, was on February 15th, 2003, backstage behind the protest. We were both waiting to go on. It was an extremely cold day, and also interesting that to me that given that I was hanging out with one of my icons there, Pete, the folks who are getting all the media attention from the mainstream media that was there in fairly significant numbers was the stars of the show, who were also waiting to go on stage. Who was it? Susan Sarandon, Desmond Tutu, and Danny Glover. Danny Glover was the one that seemed to be attracting most of the media. And Pete and Toshi were freezing in a corner there in the tent there, and I went over and hung out with them, which is what I wanted to do anyway, and was glad that they weren't surrounded by media. And Pete sang Over the Rainbow at the protest, and I sang my song Resistance. I kind of wish I had sang a different song, but it was a very strange day, so cold, and it was one of the many occasions in New York City where they weren't allowing some, like Bloomberg's administration basically was horrible, and I think it was Bloomberg, or maybe it was Giuliani. He was even worse. But they at that one in 2003, they allowed us to have a rally but no march, and they penned in people in pens at each block of the rally. So it stretched on much longer, much further than it would have needed to be if they hadn't had all these pens and people couldn't move, and half the people who wanted to get in to participate in the thing probably never were able to get in. There were lots of well-to-do, sort of, thoroughly middle-class women and men from the suburbs who had come in probably for their first and only protest, and were having heated arguments with the cops because they didn't know that cops did this kind of thing. They thought they saved kittens in trees because that's what they do in the suburbs. But it was quite something. And in London, England, on that protest, there were also many hundreds of thousands of people, maybe millions of people there in Trafalgar Square, and among the other festivities of the day, there was a homemade statue of George W. Bush that was toppled, and I wrote a song about that incident. The president came to London, was greeted by the Queen. For the people of the city, it was a festive scene. Hundreds of thousands of women and men were all in the street, shouting and dancing and talking and marching on their feet. But the highest peak of the evening, to be only fair, was when the statue of George Bush was toppled in Trafalgar Square. Those days in London was the place to be. Young and old, black and white, was the face of society. Even the mayor came out, called him a criminal of war, said world domination ain't worth fighting for. They said we don't like W or his poodle, Tony Blair, on the day the statue of George Bush was toppled in Trafalgar Square. The night sky was lit up, and the message, it was clear. We do not want fascism over there or over here. It was heard firsthand by many right there on British soil. We will not fight for Exxon, we won't kill or die for oil, but for billions around the planet. We were all right there when the statue of George Bush was toppled in Trafalgar Square. When the statue of George Bush was toppled in Trafalgar Square. And it was also in February on let's see, February 18th, 2010, WikiLeaks posted the first material from Chelsea Manning, including the what Assange started calling the collateral murder video.
Find the patterns sifting through. As she read the data, the patterns did emerge. Patterns that were clear both before and since the surge. Patterns of abuse of the most horrific kind. Gunning down civilians out of view and out of mind. Gunning down the opposition in the middle of the night. Sending off the scholars to be tortured out of sight. Sometimes you need desperate measures when you live in desperate times. Private Manning saw she was looking at war crimes. She wondered what to do to allow the dead to speak. She finally decided to contact WikiLeaks. Now it's all out on the table and everybody knows the emperor is naked, he's not wearing any clothes. Has to live within his skin. He stabbed Chelsea in the back, called the cops and turned her in. But not before the soldier took 500,000 files. If you printed all the pages, they'd stretch on for miles. Evidence against the state, right from the horse's mouth. Machinations in the west, bombings in the south. A treasure trove of details for all the globe to see. How much they need to lie and kill for democracy. How many drone strikes hit villages, leaving everyone to die. They blamed on someone else. The official lied, not I. How many coups have been plotted by ambassadors who say that free and fair elections be the order of the day. Now it's all out on the table and everybody everybody knows. The emperor is naked, he's not wearing any clothes.
Out of the bottle, and they're trying to stuff it back and stop it from illuminating everything we lack, such as the rule of law or playing by the book. Look, you can read it, it's right here. The ship of state is run by crooks, and they vilify the messengers, call them every name for daring to blow the whistle on the nature of their game, the game of taking lives and endangering the rest, in order for the wealthy few to do what they do best, dominate the world for the corporate elite. But now their cover's blown from their head down to their feet, and now the stars and stripes is looking much more like a rag. The lid is off the box, the cat's out of the bag. Now it's all out on the table, and everybody knows the emperor is naked, he's not wearing any clothes. It's all out on the table, and everybody knows the emperor is naked, he's not wearing any clothes.
And then the following year, on February 19th, 2011, during the heady early months of 2011, when demonstrations on a massive scale and riots and rebellions and revolutions were breaking out throughout the Arabic-speaking world, 70,000 people protested in Wisconsin in Madison against Scott Walker, Governor Scott Walker's union busting, and that was one of many, many protests that happened around that time in February 2011. And I wrote this song, though I was never able to make it to Wisconsin for that stuff because I couldn't afford it, the plane ticket.
My ancestors came to Wisconsin. They came here from the east. They believed the greatest person was no greater than the least. And this state, it was founded on the grounds that we're all free, and no one should ever suffer from the bonds of slavery. When the call went out from Kansas, there were many volunteers who left their families in Wisconsin to free their shackled peers. They stood and fought together, and therein lay the key. They stood shoulder to shoulder. They were union folk like me. If in union we're together, raise our voice above the din. If in union we're together, then in union we will win. When the mill came to Milwaukee and it became a factory town in 1886, they shut all the factories down. The demands were fairly simple. Eventually they got their way. Fighting Bob La Follette and the 8-hour day. They were massacred at Bayview the blood that grew the seed of the socialist republic that had union as its creed. There were differences among them, good people disagree, but the core of their success was they were union folk like me. If in union we're together, raise our voice above the din. If in union we're together, then in union we will win. There are those who try to tell us, forget your history. You no longer need a say here. You don't need your liberty. Let us make the decisions. You just do as you are told. Those who are fit to rule here are those who have the gold. But we're here to tell the governor we're not falling for that line. Workers only can have power when in union we combine. Workers' voices also matter. Generations here agree. The way to move is to move forward, arm in arm in unity. If in union we're together, raise our voice above the din. If in union we're together, then in union we will win. If in union we're together, raise our voice above the din. If in union we're together, then in union we will win.
Incidentally, that song is one of 10 songs on something I put out in 2011 called 10 New Songs. And if you go to davidrovics.com and click on the link to download Big Red Sessions and More, 10 New Songs from 2011 is part of the and more. And you can download either album with a click or both albums with 2 clicks, more or less, and for free. So now we're nearing the end of this show because there's other people were pied by the BBB later in February. For example, the mayor of San Francisco had been pied, and on February 25th in 1999, 3 folks that I know went to prison for 6 months. They got 6 month sentences. I think they served 3 or 4. I can't remember, but that was for pieing the mayor of San Francisco when he was announcing his homelessness, his sweep of the streets, comparing homeless people to dirt, and saying they basically need to be swept away from San Francisco. The strategic mistake that the pie throwers made, perhaps, is throwing a mixed berry pie, which is the wrong color for throwing pies because it makes somebody think of blood, and that's why cream pies are generally better. Banana cream pie, not mixed berry because it's red or something that looks too red. And they got attacked by Mayor Brown's Mayor Willie Brown. Well, I think that was his name. Or maybe I'm getting that confused with the governor. Anyway, the mayor's security attacked my friends in the BBB and broke one of their collarbones. They tackled them so hard. There was also on February 17th, tens of thousands protested in Washington, D.C. against the Keystone XL pipeline as well. So more prominent dates related to the pipeline in February, but I already did both of those songs, and I'm not going to do them again. February 26th, 1974, the Ford Motor Company's Nazi ties were revealed in a Senate report. This was this part of the church hearings? I can't remember, but of course the Ford Motor Company's Nazi ties obviously go way back to when they were building tanks for both sides in World War II, and profiting immensely from their operations in the U.S. as well as from their operations in Germany, and prepared to make out extremely well regardless of who won the war. And not only that, but Henry Ford himself used to fund pro-Nazi speaking tours in the U.S. and was a big anti-Semite believer in eugenics. And to top it all off, in I think it was 1952, the Ford Motor Company sued the U.S. for bombing their tank factories in Germany and won.
Ford sued the U.S. Army, the U.S. government in the 50s because during the war, the U.S. Air Force bombed their tank-making facilities in Germany. And this is true. And what was it, like 52 or something? They sued the U.S. government for destroying their factories. And they won. They won the lawsuit. So I had to write a little song for Henry here. Ford built tanks for the Nazis, and the Nazis used those tanks to gun down lots of soldiers in the U.S. Army ranks. Yes, Henry Ford was a fascist, and a nasty one was he. He built tanks for anyone for the proper fee. Henry Ford spoke to his lackeys, and he said, "Isn't this great? We'll attack our enemies and we'll retaliate." Yes, Henry Ford was a fascist and a cunning liar too. A brown shirt with a swastika draped in red, white, and blue. Henry Ford spoke to his workers and he said, "You dare not strike. You must be patriotic and take on my Third Reich." Yes, Henry Ford was a fascist and he had not a care about the dying soldiers that made him a billionaire. Ford built tanks for the Nazis, and he built many more to gun down lots of peasants in Peru and Salvador. Yes, Henry Ford was a fascist, I heard that when he died. The last words to leave his lips was "Arbeit macht frei." Yes, the dollar was his icon on whichever shore, and Henry's only motto was "make money and make war." Yes, Henry Ford was a fascist. That's all I have to say. I will spit on Henry's rotting grave until my dying day. Yes, Henry Ford was a fascist. That's all I have to say. I will spit on Henry's rotting grave until my dying day.
That's from Live at Club Passim with Sean Staples on mandolin and Eric Royer on banjo in Boston and, Cambridge, Massachusetts. I'll do a couple more. On the same date, February 26th, as Ford Motor Company's Nazi ties were revealed in a Senate report, racist vigilante George Zimmerman in 2012 got out of his car and shot unarmed teenager Trayvon Martin to death on the sidewalk, claiming he felt threatened, presumably by the fact that Trayvon was black and wearing a hoodie, which is terribly threatening.
boy went to visit his father out of town, where he had moved to an upscale neighborhood. It rains a lot in Florida, and it was raining on that night, but everyone says exercise is good. He went out for a walk to the convenience store to go out and bring some candy back. But some people leave and they never come home, and that night was a one-way track. For the neighborhood watchman was driving in his car on a rainy night, looking for a young man who might have a part to play in his personal race war. And what if this trolling vigilante, sowing terror on a racist whim, what if when he found this teenage boy, he instead had found a man more like him? What if things were different? Where would he be bound? What if Trayvon had stood his ground? When Zimmerman approached in an unmarked vehicle, when the high school student ran, what if instead he had stood there in the rain with his Skittles and his Arizona can? What if, trying to avoid a conflict with this cracker who was evidently messed up in the head, Trayvon had said, "I feel like my life's in danger," and he had shot this vigilante dead? What if things were different? Where would he be bound? What if Trayvon had stood his ground? Would this hooded youth be gingerly arrested, treated for his wounds and then let free? Would he be hailed as a hero by the NRA, by Limbaugh, Beck, and Hannity? Would he be found not guilty by any jury in this country? Would he be allowed to keep his gun? Or would he be sitting in a prison cell watching pundits on the TV saying, "That kid really should have run"? What if things were different? Where would he be bound? What if Trayvon had stood his ground?
Well, thank you all for joining me for February in History and Song. Once again, as usual, sorry for all the technical glitches, and hope you enjoyed the experience and are not finding some of these songs too repetitive, since some of them keep on coming up, because every month or so in history there was a wedding party bombed in Afghanistan, so I have to sing that song again. So I don't know if the whole thing is all that well thought out on that level, but anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. All you listeners from North America, Australia, Europe, and Asia that are out there in the chat room, and the many more who never bother with the chat room, and partly perhaps because, I don't know, well, for one thing, I think you have to give all these silly details and shit in order to get into the chat room. But I appreciate all of you, anonymous or not, out there listening, and it is heartwarming to know that somebody's paying attention, other than the intelligence agencies, who I have evidence of them paying attention. But it's so. Let's see. Just to recap some of those announcements from the beginning, for those who may have missed them, or who feel like hearing them again. Given that I'm a U.S. citizen, I need to, make at least a couple of commercial announcements, and maintain some credibility. I'm going to be in Europe, in California later this month in February, early March. I'll be all over California from the north to the south. Lots of gigs on my website that you can see there at davidrovics.com. If anybody wants to organize a show, I'd love to do a show somewhere in between Santa Barbara and San Francisco, and I'd also love to do a show in Humboldt County. Those would both work really well with the plan, but there's lots of gigs already planned in throughout the San Francisco and the East Bay and the Los Angeles area and Santa Barbara, as well as Mendocino up north, and also have couple of free dates when I could potentially do something in Southern Oregon on the way down there and on the way back. So far, nothing is planned in Southern Oregon, but it would be great if that changed. And then in April, I'll be in England and Scotland, hopefully Wales, if anybody organizes something. Got lots of room for more gigs in England, Scotland, and Wales in April, as well as in Germany, Switzerland, Belgium, Netherlands, Norway, Denmark, and Sweden in May. And if anybody feels like organizing something, I'd love to hear from you. So I'll do one more song here that is basically an advertisement for a t-shirt now, and in fact not just a t-shirt, but hoodies, onesies, and stickers, as well as t-shirts. You can find at if you click buy stuff, if you go to davidrovics.com and click on buy stuff, and once again, if you want to support what I'm doing generally, this show and just the general thing of trying to get to the next protest and stuff, you are very welcome to go to davidrovics.com and click on the subscribe or the donate links, and I will leave you now with a t-shirt advertisement.
I don't drive a car because they run on gas, and if I did, it'd run on biomass. I ride a bike, or sometimes a skateboard, so fuck off all you drivers and your yummy hordes, sitting all day in the traffic queues. I'm a better anarchist than you. I don't eat meat, I just live on moldy chives, or the donuts that I found in last week's dumpster dives. For you people in that restaurant, I think you are so sad when you could have been eating bagels like the ones that I just had. I think it is a shame all the bourgeois think you do. I'm a better anarchist than you. I don't wear leather, and I like my clothes in black, and I made a really cool hammock from a moldy coffee sack. I like to hop on freight trains, I think that is so cool. It's so much funner doing this than being stuck in school. I can't believe you're wearing those brand new shiny shoes. I'm a better anarchist than you. I don't have sex, and there will be no sequel, because heterosexual relationships are inherently unequal. I'll just keep on moshing to anti-flag and crass until there are no differences in gender, race, or class. All you brainwashed readers, you just haven't got a clue. I'm a better anarchist than you. I don't believe in voting, I think consensus is the key. I don't believe in stupid notions like representative democracy. Whether or not it works, I know it is the case, and only direct action can save the human race. So when I see you in your voting booth, then I know it's true. I'm a better anarchist than you. I am not a pacifist, I like throwing bricks, and when the cops have coffee and I've taken a few licks, I always feel lucky if I get a bloody nose, because I feel so militant and everybody knows by the time the riot is all through, I'm a better anarchist than you. I'm a better anarchist than you.
And by the way, please, if you do happen to buy a t-shirt, onesie, sticker, or hoodie, I wish I could afford to just send them all out to you, but they cost something anyway. But if you can get one of those things from my e-store or at a show, although they're hard to keep in stock at shows because they're bulky, and even if you don't sell that many, it's hard to carry enough t-shirts with you. But I'll have them at the shows, and you can also get them on my e-store on davidrovics.com. Click the buy stuff link, and if you do get one, I'd love to see you wearing it. And so please feel free to post photos on Facebook or send them to me so that I could help promote the existence of the t-shirts that way. And Tumblr, good idea. Tumblr, I'll have to figure out what the difference is there with Tumblr. Thank you all for joining me once again. I'll sign off now, and I'll be back, unless I have some other bright ideas for broadcasting something. The next plan to broadcast something is in March, second weekend of March, second Sunday of March. I'll plan on doing March in history and song, and hope to see you all then, and on the road and in the streets.